Hey guys, I hope you're all doing alright and welcome back to the B1N4G4 channel, and we're back with another tier list considering the last one did extremely well for my standards at least. And this time we're going to be looking at the F1 2021 season as a whole and the races and seeing how entertaining they were. So we've got 5 categories and we've got all the races that went ahead, including Belgium. And we've got them loaded up and we're ready to go. So before we get started, I do just want to say, if you do want to enjoy the video, then do be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So starting off with Bahrain. Now I feel like it was a very decent start to the season. I mean, obviously there was kind of that bit in the middle when nothing much really happened, but then the battle with Hamilton and Verstappen near the end really had me on the edge of my seat. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it in wow, because like it kind of shocked me that the first race was like so interesting, because we hadn't had like a super interesting first race for a while. As for Imola, now obviously the rain had a massive part like in this race, not to mention like the crashes and the red flags. I'm going to put it in WoW as well, because I don't think it would have caused a Twitter explosion, as it were. I mean, yes, there was the crash between Bottas and Russell, and that was probably the biggest moments of the whole weekend. But apart from that, we did see like quite a few good moves, particularly on like the first pit straight, the only pit straight rather. But yeah, so all in all, it was a pretty wow race, a bit like Bahrain. Now Portugal, I mean, it's somewhere down here, because, I mean, first of all, if you look at the podium for it, it's just Hamilton from Verstappen and then Bottas, and you can't really go anywhere from there. It wasn't necessarily sleep therapy, I don't think, because like we did see some pretty decent moves into like places like turn 1. And obviously the track itself is really good to sort of watch the cars go around. So I'm going to put it in okay, even though not a lot really happens. Spain, I mean, a similar thing happened in Bahrain, where, I mean, our championship leaders were pulling the opposite pit stops, and it did pay out eventually for Hamilton. But aside from that, I'm going to have to put it in sleep therapy. I mean, not just because it's Spain, but because again nothing really happened in the midfield or lower down the grids. So yeah, Monaco. Now the actual racing itself wasn't like amazing, but we did get a pretty nice podium, and qualifying was amazing to watch, as it is always. So because of that, I'm gonna keep it in decent. For it to be in WoW, I'd say there'd have to be at least some amount of good racing. To be fair, one of the only bits of actual racing we got to see was cut short by obviously the Lance Stroll meme. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing. But at the same time, we did get a car Lando podium, so I'm not going to complain about that. Azerbaijan, again, I'm going to have to put it in somewhere up here. I don't think it caused a Twitter explosion, but it was wow. I mean, for Twitter explosion, we're talking races like Britain and Saudi and Abu Dhabi, where something went down. I've kind of hinted like that I'm gonna put them there, so okay, we'll get to that. But yeah, Azerbaijan, again, a pretty interesting podium. Sergio Perez with his first win for Red Bull, Vettel with his first podium, and Gasly with another strong podium for AlphaTauri. And yeah, again, a pretty decent race, pretty good moves. Obviously there was the punctures for Verstappen and Stroll, and there was Mazepin finishing ahead of Hamilton because of his adventures on the restarts. So yeah, all in all, another wow race. Now France. It wasn't sleep therapy this time. It was actually quite interesting with the sort of strategic calls and the teammate game being played between Red Bull and Mercedes. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in okay. I won't put it in decent because I don't really remember much that happens during that weekend, and I feel like if I don't remember a lot, then not a lot really happens. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in okay. Now Austria, the first race, it was okay, I guess, because again, nothing like too crazy happened. But it wasn't, but like it didn't really put me to sleep either. Yeah, qualifying was quite good to watch. Lando getting, yeah, on the second row, I believe. But yeah, but then the podium, it was Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, which was, I mean, that has been a pretty common podium this season, but considering I don't, like, again, I don't really remember much of that weekend, it's just going to be an okay for now. The second race in Austria, I feel like was much better. Obviously, Lando got on the podium. It was much more orange than before. So yeah, I'll put it in decent. And obviously Hamilton pretty disappointing. P5. So more stuff went down. So yeah, it'll be decent. Now Bristol, like I said, I'm gonna have to put it here again. The actual race, not a lot like actually happened, apart from like moving on from the crash, because after that it was just Leclerc from Hamilton, and then Bottas, until Hamilton obviously overtook Leclerc and won. But I mean that crash pretty much meant everything, so that's why I'm putting it in this category. Like obviously you would say, I mean, wow, you can't just judge it just by what happened, but I mean, I'm just going off the name of this category. I mean, Twitter explosion doesn't necessarily mean it's a good race. I mean, it might be at the top, but still, but it was a good race. I'll give it that. Hungary. I mean, yeah, Twitter did explode again. Firstly, because of Valtteri Bottas' bowling skills. Then Ocon winning, then Vettel getting disqualified. So much went on in Hungary, much more than Britain. But yeah, obviously we got to see Ocon get his first win in Formula 1, which was very, very good to see. So yeah, Belgium. Now, qualifying, amazing. The race, sleep therapy. So, it's literally, so like, this was quite, if we're talking just about qualifying, would be here. If we're talking about the race, would be here. So, I mean, I don't really know where to put it. I mean, a sensible thing would be to put it in decent, I guess. Because, I mean, that's kind of in between. So yeah, but like, then again, the race is the thing most people are there for, so it's gonna be in sleep therapy. I mean, qualifying was amazing, but ultimately it's the races we're talking about, so it's gonna be sleep therapy, unfortunately. Alright, moving on to the Netherlands. Now, obviously, Verstappen's first home race in F1, and I'd say it was an okay race. I mean, again, like, not a lot really happens. Obviously, we saw like some. I want to say a bit of drama with two Mercedes cars. Obviously, Bottas getting the fastest lap even though he wasn't supposed to. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I don't really remember anything particularly special. Apart from, I mean, obviously Verstappen won, and I'm happy for him. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of where it belongs, in my opinion. Italy. Now, I mean, there are no words. That did cause, I mean, in my opinion, at least a third explosion on Twitter. Obviously, Ricciardo first win for McLaren. 1-2 for McLaren. So yeah, I mean, I don't. Obviously, everyone loves McLaren. Who doesn't love McLaren? If you don't love McLaren, then you're either Ferrari or you're a bit silly, really. So yeah, it's because of that, I'm just gonna have to put it in explosion. Obviously, for the second time, we saw our two championship rivals colliding. So that obviously did move the second race of Italy up this order. And And yeah, obviously Ricciardo kept his calm and was just in the right place and was able to take the win from Norris. And then only Bottas just rounded off the podium because yeah. Yeah. Now Russia, actually interesting as well. I'm gonna put it in wow. First of all, qualifying was again quite amazing, and the race actually went on again in quite tricky conditions at the end. I mean, we saw at the start Sainz managed to jump Norris, then Norris got him back, then Norris was sort of controlling the race. Meanwhile, Verstappen, who was like down in last, was cutting his way through the field, and then it started to rain. Hamilton pits, Norris does not. Hamilton's on fresh inters, Norris is on worn hards. The rain is falling much heavier, and yeah, Hamilton just cruises through and takes the win. And Norris finishes in something like P7, which was obviously like really disappointing. But again, another reason why I'll put it in wow, because I mean, that was a really wow moment to see it get so tense in the last few laps. And Verstappen ended up getting P2 from P20. I'd say that's also really amazing. Turkey. Now, again, this is a race where I don't remember a lot going on. So it's somewhere here. I mean, first of all, we saw a podium without Hamilton. Of course, he finished in something like P5 or something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he finished P5 at Turkey and not Austria, right? Yeah, I don't even know at this point. But yeah, so I'll put Turkey in. I mean, in okay, because I mean, yeah, because I mean it was just an okay race, really, to be honest. Again, I don't really have much to add in terms of that. Actually, I'll move it up to decent because we saw like a somewhat more interesting podium. So yeah, USA. Now that was a pretty okay race. I mean, first of all, we saw we saw Hamilton try a pretty audacious strategy call, obviously going longer than the Red Bull on both stints. I mean, it obviously didn't work out, but I mean, still, it kept me on my toes a bit. So yeah, we'll keep it in okay for now. Mexico, I think it was quite similar to the USA because I mean not a lot really happened, but then we obviously it was like quite good to see Perez on the podium. I mean obviously the main action was sort of at the start with Bottas going backwards, and then there was like quite a bit of kerfuffle back there. Do you know what, I'll put it in decent to sort of keep it a bit more balanced out. So yeah, Mexico, I'll keep it decent. Now Brazil, that was probably somewhere around here because first of all we saw Hamilton coming from the back of the field to take the win. Obviously, like the sprint race did help him. Then we also saw Verstappen getting fined 50k for touching Hamilton's rear end. That's what she said. And yeah, so I mean, there was obviously some sort of more controversy between the FIA. I feel like Twitter did kind of explode on that matter. But yeah, I'll put it in wow because I mean it was good to see the two championship rivals fight on track properly again. Because I mean, we hadn't seen that for the previous few races. I mean, it was more just sort of at the start, then one driver just sort of kept control and then just dominated. Qatar, again, really interesting race. First of all, I mean, people came into Qatar thinking, no, it's not going to be that good. But I mean, that definitely was not the case. I mean, first of all, the punctures for those trying, I believe, the one stop. Then Fernando Alonso qualifying really well along with Pierre Gasly. And yeah, Alonso managed to keep the one stop and kept going to the end. And my voice is just dying right now. But yeah, it was a pretty feel-good race, and I feel like Qatar did deliver, and it was much more than what I was expecting at least. final two races. Now, Saudi Arabia, I mean, that was just a train wreck. I mean, the racing itself, we didn't actually see a lot of, but then just because of the insane decisions by the FIA, I'm gonna put it in Twitter explosion. I mean, obviously we saw Hamilton and Verstappen having their like moment of dodginess. They made contact. Verstappen was like cutting Hamilton off. We saw several restarts. Ocon at one point was on pole. So yeah, it was just sort of all over the place. I mean, probably the most like actual proper racing action moments came probably on the last lap when Bottas managed to overtake Ocon for third place. Apart from that, the racing action was sort of like it sort of left a bad taste in my mouth because of the FIA's interventions. I mean, obviously there was Verstappen and Hamilton actually having a proper fight, but then because the FIA couldn't make like a proper decision, it just felt really half baked and not right in my mind. So yeah, that was quite unfortunate, but I mean, it was an interesting race. I'm not gonna deny it from that. And the final race was Abu Dhabi, and I mean, again, I'll put that in Twitter explosion because wow. I mean, first of all, again, like Saudi Arabia, there wasn't that much racing action. I mean, we obviously saw Perez defending like insanely from Hamilton, who'd made his pit stop. And then after that, it just looked like Hamilton would maintain his 11-second lead and just dominate like always. But obviously that was not the case. But obviously that was not the case. Obviously Latifi crashed about 5 laps till the end. That brought a safety car, and then the FIA had their moment of being on drugs, as they were like, oh yeah, well, we won't let the lap cars overtake, and then okay, we'll let the lap cars only between the two championship rivals who've both got a championship on the line, are both level on points, and we just let those cars pass. So yeah, again, that was a train wreck in terms of the FIA's decisions. But I mean, that is sort of why I've put it in this category. So yeah, they certainly made the race interesting, so I'll give them that. I mean, not everyone may have liked it, but I'm not gonna really complain about that one. I wouldn't really complain because I'm like a pretty neutral person between Hamilton and Verstappen, but lots of people did in the end. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it there. So in conclusion, we've had an amazing season. I mean, pretty much nearly half the races, or if not half the races, are in the top 2 categories. And we only had in my opinion at least, we only had 2 actually boring races, and one of them didn't go on. So I mean, if we ruled out Belgium and put it here just because of qualifying, that would mean only one race was in my opinion at least, actually boring. I mean, obviously we did have our fair share of kind of meh races, but overall most of them were wow or decent or Twitter explosion. So I mean, because of that, I'm not going to complain. We've had a really amazing season. Guys, if you did enjoy, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more Formula 1 content. I've been V1 of 4G4. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.